श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रार्थी पीयूष सर्ववेद संफल सर्व सिद्धांत ब्राह्मण सर्वलौकिक प्रद सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद्भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतो दिकादित्य श्री कृष्ण परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेम वर्षक्षराय ते सर्वदा सर्वसेव्या श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तु मे मदेक बंधो मत्संगी मद्गुरो महाधन विस्तारक भाग्य आनंद नमस्ते असाधु साधु दादाय नथनी चोच्युतागर फलम चिन्ह प्रेरणा चित्कंठयोस्पुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Then I think I should increase the font size here. Okay. I think it's going to be comparable. Text 13. तत्र तत्रोपशृण्वान स्वपूर्वेषां महात्मनां प्रलीयमानं च यशः कृष्णमाहात्म्यसूचकम् आत्मानं च परित्रातम् अश्वत्थाम्नोऽस्त्र तेजसः स्नेहं च वृष्णिपार्थानां तेषां भक्तिं च केशवे तेभ्यः परमसन्तुष्टः प्रीत्युजृम्भितलोचनः महाधना निवासांसि ददौहारान् महामनाः. Wherever the king visited, he continuously heard the glories of his great forefathers, who were all devotees of the Lord, and also of the glorious acts of Lord Krishna. He also heard how he himself had been protected by the Lord from the powerful heat of the weapon of Ashwatthama. People also mentioned the great affection between the descendants of Vishnu and Pritha, due to the latter's great devotion to Lord Keshava. The king, being very pleased with the singers of such glories, opened his eyes in great satisfaction. Out of magnanimity, he was pleased to award them very valuable necklaces and clothing. Okay, this is स्वपूर्वेषां युधिष्ठिरादीनां स्वस्य च कृष्ण महात्म्य सूचकं यशस्वी. He heard the glories of Yudhishthir and others, as well as himself. That indicated the glory of Lord Krishna. So this is a particular type of glorification. You glorify a Vaishnava in a pure manner when it is in relationship with Lord Krishna, not as if he is independently glorious. So therefore the king was very pleased. Kings and other great personalities of the state are presented with welcome addresses. This is a system from time immemorial. And Maharaj Parikshit, since he was one of the well-known emperors of the world, was also presented with addresses of welcome in all parts of the world as he visited those places. This was information for me. I did not know that these things existed in Vedic culture. I thought these were just modern superimposed things, but they were actually part of Vedic culture. The subject matter of those welcome addresses was Krishna. Krishna means Krishna and his eternal devotees, as the king means the king and his confidential associates. Krishna and his unalloyed devotees cannot be separated. Therefore, glorifying the devotee means glorifying the Lord and vice versa. Maharaj Parikshit would not have been glad to hear about the glories of his forefathers like Maharaj Yudhishthira and Arjuna had they not been connected with the acts of Lord Krishna. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees. Paritranaya Sathunam. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord by his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parikshit felt the presence of the Lord when he was glorified for his acts, especially his saving Maharaj Parikshit in the womb of his mother. There's some question here. Okay, wait. Why this thing is not showing? Maybe showing like this. Maybe. One. Maybe not showing. What is the standard process for welcoming devotees? What is the standard process for welcoming devotees? For worshipable devotees, like the spiritual master, the way to welcome them is we do a proper puja, like we would do to a spiritual master, and we sing the standard Vaishnava Kirtan. This is the way to welcome, and speak some words about the devotee. Normal way, that's all. And also give that person sadhana, proper accommodation. In Pancharatra Pradeep, there is a discussion of this. There is a discussion of this. Very nice. This is just ordinary guests, but it is very nicely written. Very nicely written. This is just ordinary respect to guests. One shows respect by rising from one's seat when a superior approaches, by identifying oneself by name and offering greetings, by offering prostrated obeisances with 5 or 8 limbs, Panchanga Pranam or Ashtanga Pranam, and touching the superior's feet with crossed hands, offering simple or elaborate worship, giving gifts such as cloth, gold, money, or grains. This is just regular. So naturally, that is meant to be observed when worshipable Vaishnavas also come. Very interesting remarks here made. See, there are 4 basic ways to serve a Vaishnava: giving him a seat, reception, washing his feet, respect, hearing from him, association, and assisting him in any way, practical service. A devotee should offer these services to his spiritual master or to similarly advanced Vaishnavas. should give great attention to receiving senior Vaishnavas, sannyasis, and especially their spiritual master. Do not neglect your spiritual masters, God brothers and God sisters, when receiving or serving your spiritual master. For his part, the spiritual master should teach his disciple to respect and serve the Vaishnavas, particularly his own God brothers and God sisters. I remember in third canto, we will come across this. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will explain that he is talking of contemporary gurus during his time. He's talking very approvingly, respectfully of a particular practice amongst them. He says that when a Vaishnava would serve such a bona fide spiritual master, but he would neglect other devotees, that guru would publicly declare, that all your service to me is a waste of time because you're not honoring the devotees of the Lord. Ashila Jiva Goswami explains in his Bhakti-vaibhava, it is auspicious for the disciple if on the order of his spiritual master, without interfering with his service to him, the disciple serves other respectable Vaishnavas. If he does not follow this rule, he becomes an offender. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also explained that the expression spiritual master refers to a perfect pure devotee. Before the Vaishnava guest arrives, his living quarters should be arranged, cleaned, and provided with necessities such as panchapatra, achman cup, mirror, tilak, towels, drinking water, and fresh bedding. If possible, provide a set of Srila Prabhupada's books. You may also provide some incense, an incense holder, and matches or a lighter. The guest quarters may also be decorated with flower vases, devotional pictures, and so on. When a Vaishnava guest arrives, you should go out to greet him, preferably with kirtan, garlands, and sandalwood paste, unless it's cold outside. You should offer obeisances and kind words and should direct the guest to a seat where he may wash his feet. If you are receiving your spiritual master, you should worship him at this time with his permission by offering him arati, offering flowers at his feet, and paying obeisances. You should be prepared to offer the guest prasad immediately, but you should first inquire whether the guest wishes to first bathe or rest before accepting prasad. When appropriate, you should introduce the guest to other residents of the temple or household. Temple, if one is receiving him in the temple, household, if this is done by a householder, and should inquire if there is some service you may render. You may also ask the guest how long he intends to stay, taking care not to give the impression that you are looking forward to his departure. Rather, you should encourage your honored guest to stay longer than he had planned. Some of the devotees from Bangladesh is has a very hospitable culture. So they have a habit of feeding devotees who come as guests. So this devotee was saying, when they settled in Mayapur, these devotees are very shocked at the lack of such hospitable culture in West Bengal, East Bengal, and West Bengal. They said, one of my friends told me that when he had gone, a householder, he had gone to visit some other householder in West Bengal. That host asked him, have you finished your, have you eaten? Or do you plan to go back to your home and then eat? So this devotee said, this kind of talk you'll not hear amongst practicing Vaishnavas in Bangladesh, because it is considered a great honor to feed a person. Even if you have just finished eating, you would arrange for your family members to cook again for a guest. There's a certain culture of Gaudiya Vaishnava hospitality. That is why it's saying, don't give the impression that you're looking forward to his departure. Rather, you should encourage your honored guest to stay longer than he had planned. Each temple or Vaishnava community will likely differ in its policy of accommodating visiting Vaishnavas depending on the intended length of the visit, the seniority of the Vaishnava, his plans for participating in community activities, and so on. At an appropriate time, a community authority should politely discuss the local policy with the visiting Vaishnava so that no misunderstandings may arise and lead to Vaishnava aparadh. Some guidelines that guests should follow appear at the end of the following section, reception of guests. Not only grihasthas, everyone in every ashrama and varna should properly receive guests. How elaborately you can greet guests will vary according to your means. The main elements in receiving guests are the offering of proper respect and conveniences, including food and water, a place to sit, kind words, any services for the comfort of the guest, such as bathing facilities and a place to rest. When the guest first arrives, you should go out to meet him, and when the visitor departs, you should accompany him at least out of the premises or the yard. Proper behavior as a guest. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 8.49 purport, Prabhupada cautions us against indiscriminately accepting invitations, especially if the occasion involves eating food. A Vaishnava guest should behave ideally, whether his host is another Vaishnava or a well-wisher of Vaishnavas. What follows are a few commonly accepted points of etiquette for Vaishnava guests. If you are an invited guest, you should not overstay your invitation. For example, if invited for a meal, you may rest a short time after the meal to aid your digestion, but do not burden your host by staying and conversing for several hours unless encouraged to do so. Do not bring your own guests on the strength of your invitation. If you wish to invite other guests, ask your host permission. If you're permitted to use a telephone, fax machine, and other such facility, offer to pay accrued expenses. When planning to visit a friend or acquaintance uninvited, try to let your prospective host know when you will arrive and how long you intend to stay. Unless you have been invited or have informed your host, try to avoid arriving at a temple or at your host's house at noontime or early afternoon, when both the deity and persons in general rest after lunch. If you stay for some days at your house, it is appropriate to give token gifts to the household residents as a gesture of gratitude. Srila Prabhupada did this after staying at a life member's house for some days in Bombay. Not just at this particular instance when they're mentioning, but it is a very common thing. Prabhupada would call the servants and give them some money. It's just ordinary civilized behavior. Now, whoever becomes spiritual masters in ISKCON, should we take them as pure devotee? Not necessarily. The GBC body itself is trying to escape from all these conclusions to the best of their ability. They are somehow worshipable, at the same time they're not necessarily pure devotees. So they're struggling to deal with the situation. It is better than like at the Gaudiya Math, where there is only a single initiator. But they should be respected. In general, they should be respectful. Okay, where did I stop? Anyway, I'll read from here. The Lord descends specifically to deliver his devotees, Paritrana and Sadhana. The devotees are glorified by the presence of the Lord because they cannot live for a moment without the presence of the Lord by his different energies. The Lord is present for the devotee by his acts and glories, and therefore Maharaj Parikshit felt the presence of the Lord when he, capital H, not that, was glorified for his acts, especially his saving Maharaj Parikshit in the womb of his mother. The devotees of the Lord are never in danger, but in the material world, which is full of dangers at every step, the devotees are apparently placed into dangerous positions. And when they are saved by the Lord is glorified. Lord Krishna would not have been glorified as the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita had his devotees like the Pandavas not been entangled in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. All such acts of the Lord were mentioned in the addresses of welcome, and Maharaj Parikshit in full satisfaction rewarded those who presented such addresses. See, both parties are honoring each other. The difference between the presentation of welcome addresses today and in those days is that formerly the welcome addresses were presented to a person like Maharaj Parikshit. The welcome addresses were full of facts and figures, and those who presented such addresses were sufficiently rewarded, whereas in the present days, the welcome addresses are presented not always in factual statements, but to please the post holder, and often they are full of flattering lies. and rarely are those who present such welcome addresses rewarded by the poor receiver. 16. Sarathya parashad sevana sakhya dautya virasananugamanasthavana pranaman snigdheshu pandushu jagat pranatim cha vishnor bhaktim karoti nirpatis charanarvinde. Maharaj Parikshit heard that out of his causeless mercy, Lord Krishna, Vishnu, who was universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the malleable sons of Pandu. Snigdheshu. The Pandavas were malleable to the will of the Lord. Malleable sons of Pandu by accepting posts ranging from chariot driver to president to messenger, friend, night watchman, etc., according to the will of the Pandavas, obeying them like a servant and offering obeisances like one younger in years. When he heard this, Maharaj Parikshit became overwhelmed with devotion to the lotus feet of the Lord. Regarding the previous text 15, Shri Baladev Vidyabhushana says that when they had glorified King Parikshit about how he was protected, that is an indication of Krishna's glories. So in that way, he was glorified. Parikshit was glorified. At the same time, Krishna's glory was also pointed out. Sort of integrated glorification. This is Parshadam, acceptance of the presidency in the assembly of the Rajasuya sacrifice. These are very interesting. See, Sarathya refers to Krishna's acceptance of the post of a chariot driver, which is a lowly post. Parashada indicates that he accepted the post of a president in the assembly of the Rajasuya sacrifice, which is a very high post. Sevana, engaging the mind constantly in the service of God. It refers to Krishna's own service. Krishna also served there. Sakhya, Krishna thought of them as his friends. Dautya, he became their messenger. Virasana, he accepted the post of a watchman with a drawn sword at night. Anugamana, he would follow when Yudhishthira would walk. Krishna was a younger cousin brother, so he would follow him. Stavana, he would offer prayers. Pranaman, he would offer obeisances. Pranatim, according to Jiva Goswami, refers to the world's offering obeisances unto Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is everything to the unalloyed devotees like the Pandavas. The Lord was for them the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master, the worshipful deity, the guide, the chariot driver, the friend, the servant, the messenger, and everything they could conceive of. And thus the Lord also reciprocated the feelings of the Pandavas. Maharaj Parikshit, as a pure devotee of the Lord, could appreciate the Lord's transcendental reciprocation of the feelings of his devotees, and thus he himself also was overwhelmed with the dealings of the Lord. Simply by appreciating the dealings of the Lord with his pure devotees, one can attain salvation. The Lord's dealings with his devotees appear to be ordinary human dealings, but one who knows them in truth becomes at once eligible to go back home, back to God. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord And by such unalloyed determination, they could secure the Lord's mercy in any shape they desired. तस्यैवं वर्तमानस्य पूर्वेषां वृत्तिम् अन्वहं नातिदूरे किलाश्चर्यं यदासीत् तन्निबोध मे. Now you may hear from me of what happened not far from Maharaj Parikshit while he was passing his days hearing of the good occupations of his forefathers and being absorbed in thought of them. जित्वा च निवृत्ति समये क्वचित् निह्नुत्य भ्रमन् स्वराज्यस्य नातिदूरे एव साक्षात् कलिंग दर्शन. So after the king would conquer someone, while he was returning, so at that time he would sometimes stop and he would go around his kingdom. So at that time he saw Kali directly, not from a distance. दूरगमने पुनः कृतधार्ष्ट्यवाद. He saw from a distance, because if he had gone closer, then that would have been more audacious on the part of Kali. 18. Dharma padaikena charan vichhayam upalabhya gam prichyati smashru vadanam vivatsam iva mataram. The personality of religious principles Dharma was wandering about in the form of a bull, and he met the personality of earth in the form of a cow who appeared to grieve like a mother who had lost her child. She had tears in her eyes and the beauty of her body was lost. Thus, Dharma questioned the earth as follows. यथा नष्टापत्यां स्वमातरं कोऽपि पृच्छति तथा ताम् अपृच्छति इत्यर्थः. Just as when one asks a mother who has lost her children, the way one deals with and asks about kushala, ordinary auspiciousness of a lady who is suffering when a child has died. Like that he asked her. Krishna Chakravarti Thakur. Yugarambha kshanate eva dharma prithvi kalayas tatha bhuti bhavantaha lokaihi adrishyaha api didrikshaniyatvat anudhyayataha parikshitaha yogajanetrabhyam drishtaha yeya. At the very moment when the yuga had begun, there was this quarrel between there was this entire event concerning Dharma, Prithvi and Kali. They were not perceived by the common people. Despite that, Parikshit, in his meditation, he wanted to see them. So therefore, he could see them through his mystic vision, through his yogic powers. This should be understood. The bull is the emblem of the moral, and the cow is the representative of the earth. When the bull and the cow are in a joyful mode, it is to be understood that the people of the world are also in a joyful mode. The reason is that the bull helps production of grains in the agricultural field, and the cow delivers milk, the miracle of aggregate food values. Human society, therefore, maintains these two important animals very carefully so that they can wander everywhere in cheerfulness. At the present moment, in the age of Kali, both the bull and the cow are now being slaughtered and eaten up as foodstuff by a class of men who do not know the Brahmanical culture. The bull and the cow can be protected for the good of all human society simply by spreading of Brahmanical culture as the topmost perfection of all cultural affairs. By advancement of such culture, the morale of society is properly maintained, and so peace and prosperity are also attained without extraneous effort. When Brahmanical culture deteriorates, the cow and bull are mistreated, and the resultant actions are prominent by the following symptoms. 19. Dharma Vacha. Kachit bhadre namayam atmanaste vichayasi mlayate shan mukhena. Mlayate shan mukhena. Alakshaye bhavati mantaradhim dure bandhum shochasi kanchanamba. Mlayata ishat mukhena. Mlayata ishat mukhena. Dharma in the form of a bull asked, okay, there's some question here. The Pandavas were so malleable to the will of the Lord that they could sacrifice any amount of energy for the service of the Lord. This is because they are pure devotees. They are pure devotees. They were also perfect pure devotees. They were also perfect pure devotees of Krishna in Sakhya Rasa. Therefore, Dharma in the form of a bull asked, Madam Bhadre, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? Vichaya, shadow of grief. So it appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? I don't see any disease in you. You appear to be hale and hearty. आत्मनो देहस्य यद्यपि बहिरामयः न लक्ष्यते तथापि अंतर्मध्यादिः पीड़ा यस्याः तां त्वाम् अलक्ष्ये. But I sense that you have some internal suffering. तत्र कारणानि कल्पयन् पृच्छति. Then he speculates various possible causes in 5 verses, beginning with the current verse. One reason. Are you thinking of some relative who's away in a distant place? The people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. So in other words, Prabhupada is pointing out that Bhumi Devi is representing the entire human population on earth. And that is all being shown to King Parikshit. Parikshit is able to understand this. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of the people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. The particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together. To earn a livelihood, the father lives at a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. Actually, previously, a family means a few generations living together, and they're all living together. The sons don't leave the homes, but even in India, it appears to be more and more the trend that the sons leave their parents. In South India, it is many places it is like that. In Tamil Nadu, I've been told that in many cases, there's no question of a man getting married if the woman is told to live with her husband while the husband is living with his mother and father. simply considered some terrible thing. They don't accept it. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. 20. Father knew Achyutanandu.
Prabhuji, in 18th purport, when it comes to cow protection, it includes bulls, which means they also should be engaged. Like I heard somewhere that simply protecting the bulls will not help them. They need to be engaged, otherwise they get diseased. Something like this it was said. They cannot be.
I've been told that protecting the cow, the bull, and so on means giving them the sort of engagements that are naturally required for them also. We have to protect children. That doesn't mean we take the children and lock them up inside a room. We are protecting you. They need to be, they need to be allowed to do what they normally do, just in such a manner that they don't harm themselves, they don't harm others. They don't develop habits which harm themselves, and they don't harm others for the future also.
So that means that entire style of food production, grain production has to change. Otherwise,
Why?
how?
So they
Like
have
we
to
are.
be engaged. That's all. You give them Gocharana Bhumi. I'm not an expert in cow protection at all, but I do know. I know one devotee who had studied various successful goshalas in all parts of India, and he told me that what Prabhupada has said about cow protection is just ordinary common sense for one who knows how to take care of cows. Okay. He also said one of the reasons why we don't do these things, or we are all city people, and the cities are highly artificial. It's just a very artificial life. For us, food is what we find in the supermarket, or nowadays, what you find online. So for us to come in touch with reality seems a little bit strange, but it is worth it. We also have to disconnect from all this artificial life that we have been forced into. 20. Pade nyunam shochasi maika padam atmanam va vrishalair bhokshamanam aho suradin hritayagya bhagan praja utaswin magavatya varshati. I have lost 3 of my legs and I am now standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for the living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? Mam, Mallakshanam Janam. And he's saying, I have lost 3 of my legs and I am now standing on one only. As this would be clarified, refers to the 4 legs of Dharma, Vedic Dharma. Satyam, Shaucham, Tapah, Daya. So 3 of them are now, 3 of these principles are now devalued. Truthfulness or honesty, lack of duplicity, lack of diplomacy. This is still valued. So when Dharma is talking about himself, the Sridhar Swami points out, this actually refers to a person who has these characteristics of Dharma. Vrishilaihim, Lechaihi. The unlawful meat eaters refers to the Mlechas. It is very easily can be understood to be talking about how India, which is supposed to be the headquarters of Vedic civilization, will be overcome by the Mleccha way of thinking. That's the question here. In Kali Yuga, no family can live together. Brahmacharya is not possible. Then what is the hope? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Iva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, 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 Gajaranyatma. With proper acceptance of the chanting process, then families can live together. Then Brahmacharya is possible. Then Vanaprastha is not irregular. Then Sannyas is something doable. Without that, even when we accept it, we don't accept it as a central process that again it becomes a problem. So it is meant to be accepted as a central process, which means that we are supposed to increase. Other things we do, but that we are supposed to increase. With the progress of the age of Kali, four things particularly, namely the duration of life, mercy, the power of recollection, and moral or religious principles will gradually diminish. So Prabhupada is referring to these four. These four are noted in the 12th canto. Noted in the 12th canto. Show you that. Prabhupada is. Satyam, Shaucham, Kshama, Daya. Truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy. Ayur, Balam, Smriti. Truthfulness, cleanliness, tolerance, mercy, duration of life, physical strength, and memory will all diminish day by day because of the powerful influence of the age of Kali. Anudinam, day by day. So because it is day by day, a single individual is unable to perceive these effects going down. Since dharma or the principles of religion will be lost in the proportion of 3 out of 4, the symbolic bull was standing on one leg only. When 3/4 of the population of the whole world become irreligious, the situation is converted into a hell for the animals. If human beings themselves are like animals, but they will have to experience hellish, a very hellish environment. In the age of Kali, godless civilizations will create so many so-called religious societies in which the personality of God will be directly or indirectly defied. And thus faithless societies of men will make the world uninhabitable for the saner section of people. There are gradations of human beings in terms of proportional faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first-class faithful men are the Vaishnavas and the Brahmanas. The Vaishnavas refer to either the perfect pure devotees of the Lord or the imperfect pure devotees of the Lord. The Brahmanas are the Kanishta Vaishnavas. Then the Kshatriyas, then the Vaishyas, then the Shudras, then the Mlecchas, the Yavanas, and at last the Chandalas. The degradation of the human instinct begins from the Mlecchas, and the Chandala state of life is the last word in human degradation. All the above terms mentioned in the Vedic literatures are never meant for any particular community or birth. They are different qualifications of human beings in general. There is no question of birthright or community. One can acquire the respective qualifications by one's own efforts, and thus the son of a Vaishnava can become a Mleccha, or the son of a Chandala can become more than a Brahmana, all in terms of their association and intimate relation with the Supreme Lord. In submission, the meat eaters are generally called Mlecchas, but all meat eaters are not Mlecchas. Those who accept meat in terms of scriptural injunctions are not Mlecchas, but those who accept meat without restriction are called Mleccha. Beef is forbidden in the scriptures, and the bulls and cows are offered special protection by followers of the Vedas. But in the age of Kali, people will exploit the body of the bull and the cow as they like, and thus they will invite sufferings of various types. The people of this age will not perform any sacrifice. The Mleccha population will care for performances of sacrifices, although performance of sacrifices is essential for persons who are materially engaged in sense enjoyment. In the Bhagavad Gita, performance of sacrifice is is strongly recommended. 3.14 to 16. And then Prabhupada paraphrases those verses. It should be understood that this paraphrase is in line with the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The living beings are created by the creator Brahma, and just to maintain the created living beings progressively towards the path back to Godhead, the system of performing sacrifice is also created by him. The system is that living beings live on the produce of grains and vegetables, and by eating such foodstuff, they get vital power of the body in the shape of blood and semen. And from blood and semen, one living being is able to create other living beings. But the production of grains, grass, etc., becomes possible by rain. And this rain is made to shower properly by performance of recommended sacrifices. Such sacrifices are directed by the rites of the Vedas, namely Sama, Yajur, Rig, and Atharva. In the Manusmriti, it's recommended that by offerings of sacrifice on the altar of the fire, the sun god is pleased. When the sun god is pleased, he properly collects water from the sea, and thus sufficient clouds collect on the horizon and rain falls. In other words, the Vedic scripture contains a methodology by which human society can have sufficient rainfall, not too much, not too less. But with our Pratyaksha Anumana, we can never come up with such a predictable methodology to have sufficient rainfall. After sufficient rainfalls, there is sufficient production of food grains for all men and animals, and thus there is energy in the living beings for progressive activity. The Mlechas, however, make plans to install slaughterhouses for killing bulls and cows along with other animals, thinking that they will prosper by increasing the number of factories and live on animal food without caring for performance of sacrifices and production of food grain. But they must know that for the animals, they must produce grass, and that for themselves, they must produce vegetables, because they cannot live on animal food alone. And to produce grass and vegetables, they require sufficient rain. Therefore, they have to depend ultimately on the mercy of the demigods like the sun god Indra and Chandra. And such demigods must be satisfied by performances of sacrifice. This material world is a sort of prison house, as we have several times mentioned. The demigods are the servants of the Lord who see to the proper upkeep of the prison house. These demigods want to see that the rebellious living beings who want to survive faithlessly are gradually turned towards the supreme power of the Lord. Therefore, the system of offering sacrifices is recommended in the scriptures. The materialistic men want to work hard and enjoy fruitful results for sense enjoyment. Thus, they are committing many types of sins at every step of life. Those, however, who are consciously engaged in the devotion service of the Lord are transcendental to all varieties of sin and virtue. Their activities are free from the contamination of the three modes of material nature. For the devotees, there is no need for performance of prescribed sacrifices, because the very life of the devotee is a symbol of sacrifice. But persons who are engaged in fruitive activities for sense enjoyment must perform the prescribed sacrifices, because that is the only means to get free from the reactions of all sins committed by fruitive workers. In other words, those who are engaged in devotion service to the Supreme Lord and who do not engage in fulfilling their urges, the six urges. In other words, those who are not involved in any fruitive activity for sense gratification and who are engaged in devotion service to the Lord, for them, they do not have to carry out these material duties. But for everybody else, this is mandatory. Sacrifice is the means for counteracting such accumulated sins. The demigods are pleased when such sacrifices are performed, just as prison officers are satisfied when the prisoners are turned into law-abiding citizens. Lord Chaitanya, however, has recommended only one yajna or sacrifice called the Sankirtana yajna, the chanting of Hare Krishna, in which everyone can take part. Thus, both devotees and fruitive workers can derive equal benefit from the performances of Sankirtana yajna. Can you show from Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu to whom you are saying perfect purity? You open Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, part 1. In part 1, the section on Prema Bhakti. In the text of Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, it appears as Eastern Division and the last part, 4th part. In Nectar of Devotion, it should appear as chapters 18 and 19, I think. 21. Rakshamaana striya urvibhalan shochyasyato purushadairivataan pacham devim brahmakule kukarmanya brahmanye rajakule kulagriyan. Are you feeling sorry for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by Brahmanas addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that the Brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahmanical culture? Are you feeling sorry for the unhappy women and children? Unhappy because they are not protected by their respective husbands. Children because they are not uh, protected by their respective parents. Are you sorry to see that the Brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that will not respect Brahmanical culture? Just because these families are famous as being aristocratic and noble, even though they do not have devotion for Brahmanical culture. Are you bothered about uh, these families? In the age of Kali, the women and the children, along with Brahmanas and cows, will be grossly neglected and left unprotected. In this age, illicit connection with women will render many women and children uncared for. Circumstantially, the woman will try to become independent of the protection of men, and marriage will be performed as a matter of formal agreement between man and woman. In most cases, the children will not be taken care of properly. The Brahmanas are traditionally intelligent men, and thus they will be able to pick up modern education to the topmost rank. But as far as moral and religious principles are concerned, they shall be the most fallen. Education and bad character go ill together, but such things will run parallel. The administrative heads as a class will condemn the tenets of Vedic wisdom and will prefer to conduct a so-called secular state. And the so-called educated Brahmanas will be purchased by such unscrupulous administrators. Even a philosopher and writer of many books on religious principles may also accept an exalted post in a government which denies all the moral codes of the Shastras. The Brahmanas are specifically restricted from accepting such service. But in this age, they will not only accept service. Service means a job. And genuine Brahmanas consider it a great insult to be told you need a job. But in this age, they will not only accept service, but they will do so even if it is of the meanest quality. These are some of the symptoms of the Kali age, which are harmful to the general welfare of human society. 22. Kim Kshatra Bandhun Kalinopasrishtan Rashtrani va Tairavropitani Itastato va Shanapana va Sah Snanam Yavayon Mukhajiva Lokam. The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc. And they are inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? There are some necessities of life on par with those of the lower animals, and they are eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. Ahara, nidra, bhaya, maituna. These bodily demands are for both the human beings and the animals, but the human being has to fulfill such desires, not like animals, but like a human being. A dog can mate with a bitch before the public eyes without hesitation, but if a human being does so, the act will be considered a public nuisance and the person will be criminally prosecuted. Therefore, for the human being, there are some rules and regulations even for fulfilling common demands. The human society avoids such rules and regulations when it is bewildered by the influence of the age of Kali. See, the whole idea is this. If you want to have enhanced uh, community life, then you need to control the impulses that are common to all of life. Animals, their social policy is very simple. Might is right. But human beings, even those who believe in the mythology of evolution, even they accept that to follow that kind of life is not most beneficial and socially efficient. And therefore, we should not give in to our impulses. There are some Darwinists who say that the genes are themselves very selfish. They just want to ensure that the species simply have to somehow survive. But we should use our brain and not simply go with bodily impulses. So even though they don't believe that there is a soul, there is God, they believe that survival is the basic necessity of human existence as well as animal existence. Still, they say that one should not give in to one's impulses because that will not be good for the entire community. We are interdependent beings, and therefore we should not fall into the trap of our own impulses. So this is a basic concept that is accepted even in today's atheistic or secular populace. In this age, people are indulging in such necessities of life without following the rules and regulations, and this deterioration of social and moral rules is certainly lamentable because of the harmful effects of such beastly behavior. In this age, the fathers and the guardians are not happy with the behavior of their wards, of their dependents. They should know that so many innocent children are victims of bad association awarded by the influence of this age of Kali. We know from Srimad Bhagavatam that Ajamila, an innocent son of a Brahmana, was walking down a road and saw a Shudra pair sexually embracing. This attracted the boy, and later on, the boy became a victim of all debaucheries. From a pure Brahmana, he fell down to the position of a wretched urchin, and it was all due to bad association. What is this association? Nothing. He simply saw. Seeing is also association. Hearing is association. Seeing is association. All of that is association. There was but one victim like Ajamila in those days, but in this age of Kali, the poor innocent students are daily victims of cinema shows which attract men only for sex indulgence. This is, Prabhu is talking of late 50s and early 60s. Now we have cinema shows in our pocket, everywhere. So it is much more terrible. Much more terrible. I am firmly convinced that unless intelligent members of ISKCON set up the same prohibitions that Prabhupada had set up, it will not be possible to come up to the standards that he expected ISKCON members to come up to. And it will not be possible in the long run to preach, because in order to preach, you have to have enough self-control. And people will actually observe us 360 degrees everywhere. It's not just Hare Krishna people. Everyone, even Christian, Muslim, whoever you want, everybody will say, their basic point will be, you are talking big dialogues, saying that, this is bad, that is bad, this is bad. But are you avoiding these? You'll have to prove that. So we will be required to to come up with that. We will be required to demonstrably follow Upadeshamrita of Rupa Goswami. For that, Prabhupada has given a particular method. He has created temples, he has created congregation, and he has created limits for each of them. You people just do this, you people do this. Of course, you can upgrade, and of course, you can downgrade. But he has presented methodology. He has even dealt with problems which are very, very difficult to deal with. Therefore, by Krishna's arrangement, he first of all went and preached in the West. So the Indian people who are now taken to Krishna consciousness, they cannot say, no, but we are, you don't understand our difficulties. No, he clearly understands our difficulties. He understands more difficulties than that are already existing in India or in other places. He demonstrated how you can take people from an animalistic platform and bring them up higher. So logically, if you know that it can come up this much, you can also come up higher, 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 higher. So it is in this way that there will be a golden age. The golden age will be built upon Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti Yoga. So to whatever extent we accept, to that extent it will be accepted. To be accepted in our lives, it will also be accepted by others. In this way, it will certainly become a prevalent ideology. It is left to ISKCON whether ISKCON wants to lead the show or not. If we do not do this, then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will just press the button for other individuals or institutions who are surrendered to Prabhupada, and they will get the credit. Then how can we say that this age is golden age? This age is golden age for those who accept it. And it will become. It will be prevalent. It will be prevalent. It's like a pyramid. It's not that everybody is going to be on the top. The ones who are on the top will be a small number only. But overall, it will be prevalent. The so-called administrators are all untrained in the affairs of a Kshatriya. The Kshatriyas are meant for administration as the Brahmanas are meant for knowledge and guidance. The word Kshatra Bandhu refers to the so-called administrators or persons promoted to the post of administrator without proper training by culture and tradition. Nowadays, they are promoted to such exalted posts by the votes of the people who are themselves fallen in the rules and regulations of life. How can such people select a proper man when they are themselves fallen in the standards of life? Therefore, by the influence of the age of Kali, everywhere, politically, socially, or religiously, everything is topsy-turvy. Therefore, for the sane man, it is regrettable to see such a state of the general welfare of human society. 23. Yadvambate bhuri bharavatar kritavatarasya harir dharitri antarhitasya smarati visrishta karmani nirvana vilambitani. O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari incarnated himself as Lord Shri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You are probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. Visheda Swami notes that Nirvana Vilambitani has a variant reading. Nirvana Vidambitani, which indicates that those who take to the path of pure devotion service unto the Supreme Lord, being attracted by the activities of the Lord, they will even mock at liberation. In other words, mokshadapi adhika sukhani. The activities of the Lord generate such exalted happiness. It is greater than the happiness of liberation itself. Dalayo, okay. Vilambitani also have the same meaning according to certain rules of grammar. Nirvanam Kaivalyam Vidambitam Swamathuryana Upahasa Aspadikritam Yaistani. The activities of the Supreme Lord, they cause one to mock at impersonalistic liberation because the activities of the Supreme Lord are so sweet. The activity of the Lord include liberation, but they are more relishable than the pleasure derived from nirvana or liberation. According to Srila Jiva Goswami and Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, the word used here is nirvana vidambitani, which minimizes the value of liberation. Vidambitani, but they have the reading vidambitani, that which minimizes the value of liberation. Even if you take it as vilambitani, it has a la and da are interchangeable also. To attain, the word used here is nirvana vidambitani, that which minimizes the value of liberation. To attain nirvana, liberation, one has to undergo a severe type of tapasya, austerity. But the Lord is so merciful that He incarnates to diminish the burden of the earth. Simply by remembering such activities, one can defy the pleasure derived from nirvana and reach the transcendental abode of the Lord to associate with Him, eternally engaged in His blissful, loving service. So, I think that's a question here. How to balance these things together? Utility is the principle for preaching and protecting oneself not to fall victim to Maya. If we accept Prabhupada as our Mahajana, things will be much easier. And I think that is where our problem lies. We think that Prabhupada's followers, one or many, are as good as Prabhupada, and that listening to them is as good as listening to Prabhupada, and that's the mistake we are making. Superiors are superiors. They may be more advanced than us, that's all fine. But you accept the Supreme Court as the Supreme Court, and you accept the High Court as High Court. We are under both the High Court and Supreme Court. We are under lower court also. But there is still a hierarchy between lower court, High Court, Supreme Court. Prabhupada, if you accept Prabhupada and his explanation of the teachings of his predecessors as the Supreme Court judgment, there's only one Supreme Court, then many things will become very, very clear. 24. Idam mama chakshvat tavadhimulam vasundhare yena vikarshitasi kalena vate balinam baliyasa surarchitam kim kritamamba sauhagam. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. By the grace of the Lord, each and every planet is created fully equipped. So not only is this earth fully equipped with all the riches for the maintenance of its inhabitants, but also when the Lord descends to the earth, the whole earth becomes so enriched with all kinds of opulences that even the denizens of heaven worship it with all attention. But by the will of the Lord, the whole earth can at once be changed. He can do and undo a thing by His sweet will. Therefore, no one should consider himself to be self-sufficient or independent of the Lord. 25. Dharanya Vacha. Bhavan hi veda tatsarvam yanmam dharmanu prichhasi chaturbhir vartase yena padailoka sukhavahai. The earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me is already known to you. Yet I shall try to reply to all those questions. Once you too were maintained by your 4 legs, and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Bhavan janati eva tathami vakshyami. Yeah, you know all this. Still, you asked, so I will speak. From text 25 up to the 6th verse from this is one complete sentence. Here, there's a reference to the 4 legs of Dharma. And the 4 legs of Dharma are being described as increasing the happiness in each and every planet. Satyam, Shaucham, Tapah, Daya. These are good for everyone. It makes people happy. It just makes them happy a little later. In one very lifetime itself, one will begin to experience the benefits of it. The Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has noted, येन हेतुभूतेन त्वं चतुर्विपादैर्वर्तसे इति वर्तमान सामीप्य वर्तमान प्रयोग. This is a discussion about something that happened in the recent past. When Lord Shri Krishna was manifest, then the four legs of dharma were intact. The four fundamental principles of Vedic dharma were intact. But after Lord Shri Krishna had departed, then it is no longer so. Daya Satya Tapah Shochaihi Padai. The principles of religion are laid down by the Lord Himself, and the executor of such laws is Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satya Yuga. In the Treta Yuga, they reduced by a fraction of 1/4. In the Dwapara Yuga, they reduced to 1/2. And in the Kali Yuga, they reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point, and then devastation takes place. Happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus, one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately go back home, back to Godhead. Okay, so I'll stop with this. I just have to make an adjustment to the schedule since I took one day off and cancel off one of the buffer days. Okay. Somapati Gauranga Prabhu has a question.
So one question is that one devotee, one student asked me, what is meaning of Purushartha?
Purushartha means the human goal, a goal for a human being. Everything that human beings want to attain has been brought under 4 categories: pious credits, dharma; wealth, artha; ordinary enjoyment, kama; and freedom from all the miseries of human existence, moksha.
So why it is called Purushartha? Why not Sri Artha?
Purusha, man, refers to man as well as woman. Mankind, we say, no? We don't always say mankind and womankind will prosper if we introduce 5G. We don't talk like that. Man includes woman.
Yeah.
And then the children will come up and say, why you have to talk about man and woman? Why didn't you say man, woman, and children? We are not men or women. And then you like to accept them. Then old people will say that only these men and women. What about all old people? It's understood.
Others, those who are not men and women.
And what about those who are not men and women? They trans. Now they will say you people are all transphobic, simply creating trouble. But it's not like that. It's representative. It's iconic. It is symbolic. When you refer to man includes woman.
Yeah. So regarding this, neither man nor woman, we find frequently nowadays for worshipping deity or working for kitchen, we get those type of candidates only. But later we come to know they have attraction for gents, boys only, not for
No. You're talking of homosexual. You're not here talking of. I'm talking of trans. Transgender is different from homosexual.
Yeah. So
they're all different types of issues. But anyway, the current in today's world, they try to portray. This is called sexual orientation. That they think that this is genetic, but there is evidence that these are not genetic. These are just states, because There are heterosexuals who have become homosexuals and become heterosexuals again. If it had to be genetic, then they would have been in that. It's not that some man or some comes and says, I discovered I'm gay. What is this you discover? And after 20, 30 years, then you'll discover that you're straight. You know, there are people who,
just the gender is a fluid, so in just few seconds you can.
no, there, the way I put it is orientation is fluid. Orientation is not fixed. It's not solid. It's fluid. If you're in Tamoguna, you get homosexual tendencies. If you're in Rajoguna, then you get heterosexual. In Sattva Guna, you become asexual. There is something called asexual also, considered to be one sexual orientation since within the last 10 years. That is also a state. State, S-T-A-T-E, state. State as a condition. All of us are supposed to become so Krishna conscious that we will lose our sexual attraction. That doesn't mean we become psychotic nonsense. It means that we actually progress with various virtues, universally recognized virtues. All of them should naturally arrive in our life when we practice proper Krishna consciousness. Now, if all of that sounds like a mythology, it means something is dangerously wrong with our implementation of Krishna consciousness.
So another question is, we were reading Mother Yashoda, this Damandan Lila. Their Mother Yashoda is meditating upon the pastimes of Lord Krishna. Prabhupada writing there that she was making as a poem and meditating on it. So should we also need to do like that? If it's so, then how?
No, I don't understand. In what context we need to do that? Prabhupada has already specified now. He wanted Krishna book to be converted into poetry so that it could be sung. So if you know some poets, you tell them to do that.
I have to ask Dharmatma.
Yeah, he should do that. Or anybody. In all languages we should do. This is all very beneficial. In Bengali we have something called, we have two in fact. Sri Krishna Vijay by Sri Gunaraj Khan. Very beautiful poetry. Vyasadeva appeared to him and instructed him to summarize the 10th canto. And I think he also has taken a little bit of 11th canto. There's another important book called Krishna Prema Tarangini in very simple, beautiful Bengali verses. He has summarized the first 9 cantos, and then for 10th, 11th, and 12th canto, he has summarized every verse of the Bhagavatam. Very nice. Prabhupada himself, he converted Bhagavad Gita into Bengali poetry, Gita Gan. It'll be nice if we have something like that in various languages. This kind of poetry is very much welcome and very required. Please share if you have. I share what? What I should share?
This poetry you said, this book, Bengali books.
Bengali books.
Krishna Vijay and the other.
They're available. They're available. ISKCON should start printing these books. That's all. Just that we imagine that we are not followers of these predecessor acharyas. So therefore we are not printing them. But we read their translations though. We don't read the original. So we are a little bit psychotic in that. But we should just print the books. You see the different Gaudiya monks, they all print the same books. So we should also print. To come forward and print. Instead of thinking like a Vaishya, how much money will we get through these book sales? These things have to be printed so that people should read. In fact, I want that poetry should be accompanied by prose paraphrases.
Yeah. Bro, another question is that
and they should also be translated into all languages of the world. Very beautiful, very, very beautiful, very nice poetry. Very nice poetry.
Yeah, Prabhu, in one of the video, one time Prabhupada is saying to his disciple about surrender. How much time it takes to surrender. And Prabhupada chastised him that don't you read my book, Bhagavad Gita? It takes only 1 minute. So what does it
Now,
mean?
many times he says it takes a moment. He was asked how long, what does it take to become a pure devotee? All that. He gives a typical answer. He says, within a moment, you just surrender, that's all. But, we don't want to surrender. So we are the only cause of our own shoka, moha, bhaya. Okay.
Yeah, one more question. A spiritual master's name sometimes does not change. Like after getting, they become Maharaj Sannyasi. We were reading in Chaitanya
No,
Charitamrita.
that has nothing to do with being a guru, no. You don't have to be a guru in order to. First of all, why when you become a guru, your name should change?
But there is change in ISKCON.
When you become a guru, your name changes. That's very strange. Very strange. If a man has children, he changes his name.
No,
It's
that
very
is
strange.
happening. No, so I am asking.
Where it is happening? Whole ISKCON. When somebody becomes a guru, his name changes. When does it happen?
Not Guru, I think Maharaj from
When you become a sannyasi.
yeah.
That is different. That is different. Look, these are all
But
very, very different things. Don't mix up these.
no,
Somebody
but
becomes.
for some Maharajas does not change. Like just like Guru Maharaj, he does not change his name, Prabhupada. But other Maharajas.
So that is, you should ask the spiritual master of uh, the one who gives sannyas. So he's called sannyas guru. And he may be the same person as the one who gave first initiation, second initiation also. So that's his choice. Shastra is quite open about it. So
Like
sometimes they
Chaitanya
change, sometimes they don't.
Mahaprabhu's, his name after sannyas became Krishna Chaitanya.
From
Before that,
Vishwambhar, it was changed to
yeah.
Sri Krishna Chaitanya. But there are others who take vows of renunciation and their names are not changed. It's not, there doesn't seem to be a hard and fast rule about this. It is changed, but sometimes it is not changed. Sometimes there are those, before initiation, they have a certain name. And the name may be a very nice name which reminds us about Krishna and Krishna's associates. And sometimes the spiritual master doesn't feel like changing the name also. If the name is nice, what is the need to change it also? So they may just add some surname or they may add some Shri before it or different things they do. So that is also there.
Thank you.
No, there's no scriptural, from whatever I can see, it's not mandatory. But there are usual customs. There are usual customs of for sannyas, they give names which are very interesting, very nice, which honor that person, which encourages that person. Actually, there's one thing that Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted titles to be given. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would give titles on an annual basis. Titles. I think yesterday only I was thinking that within ISKCON, everybody wants to become a managerial authority because they're all being glorified. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would give titles. He would give titles for those engaged in different services. All kinds of titles. Titles for those who brought money, titles for those who did various services. I think he gave title for somebody who was engaged in gardening, but a very nice devotee. He also gave titles naturally for those who are very learned. Titles are very important. Prabhupada also said